Jim and Bill, It's Another Day podcast has been on the air just over 3 years. We started our 4th year in December. Some people have asked, how many people do you think you reach? Well, here's what Variety said.
Variety reported that the podcast had reached 427 million downloads.
427 million downloads. Oh, and by the way, that figure was globally and for the year ending in 2024. I wonder where we are now. For those who found us and made us a part of your day, thank you. Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. The weekend is... Oh, by the way, Canadian Bacon Day today. Yeah,
Really?
This is their... Well, yeah, today.
Well,
March
you know,
3rd is...
the Canadians, they can keep their bacon right now because I don't know whether you heard this or not, but there was a WWF match in Toronto over the weekend. Did you hear about that? And
well, you're going to tell us either way. So.
Well, yeah, this very, very talented young lady got up and sang our national anthem. And this is in Toronto, right? And usually they're welcoming, but not anymore. Listen.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets of red glare, the bombs bursting in air.
Okay, so what they were doing, it's hard to really hear in that.
They're booing.
But they were booing, yeah. And she's, by the way, a very, very good voice, very nice rendition. They were booing in Toronto, so that's fine. They can boo. They can be unhappy with us, and that's okay. But, you know, sure, 99% of their economy relies on us. I mean, if we decide not to pay them any attention, they're going to feel it. But let them be ungrateful.
Well,
that's all right.
You know what? It's Canadian Bacon Day. They can stick their bacon because every other day of the year is American Bacon Day. Yeah, there you go.
But you know what does go good with bacon, Bill?
Coffee.
Oh, coffee and bacon. You can't beat it. And there's only one kind of coffee really to have. You know that.
Right side coffee. Although right side coffee won't get the taste of hate from Canada out of the air.
Well,
it'll get it out of your mouth, but not out of the air.
We should point out, it's not just right side coffee. It's Jim and Bill's right side coffee,
yeah.
which makes it really special. It's a coffee blend of the finest beans, painstakingly selected so that all the flavor you expect from a great cup of coffee is right in your hands. Now, don't take our word for it. I mean, you may say, you guys are partial. It's your coffee. But listen, we wouldn't sell you a bad cup of coffee. That's not what we do here. It's not our job. No. We give you only the best cup of coffee. Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. Now, Bill, there are people out in our audience right now, the millions of people who are listening all around the world, and they're saying, well, I'd buy the coffee, but I have no idea where to get the coffee.
You know, I can solve that for them.
Can you?
They can go to rightsideshop.com. rightsideshop.com. Or if you don't want to remember that, you listen to the podcast, you know, Jim and Bill, it'sanotherday.com. Just it'sanotherday.com up at the top magically.
Oh, my
like
goodness.
that shining light in the night when you're driving.
Yes.
It's the hotel we're looking for.
It's like an epiphany. It's like
yes,
an
it is.
Yes.
Rightsideshop.com. It's right there, the link, so you can get to it.
And all you have to do is take the little pointer on your mouse. We all have a mouse somewhere in the house. You have to have a mouse in your house. So use your mouse, click the button on the top of our page. Takes you right there. It's amazing.
It's good stuff, Maynard, so get it today and tell your friends about it and enjoy.
And, you know, other coffees have their jingles, but they don't have Juan Jose and the Border Crosser.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
And they do such a magnificent job. Wake up on the
Marvelous.
right side coffee. The big story over the weekend, Bill, was Zelensky. You know, it's amazing and it's so predictable. You hear people on the left blaming everything on Trump, blaming everything on our administration. And I find what I find amazing, Bill, is that, you know, the left used to be the party of peace, you know, peace and love. Remember when back in the 70s, the left would walk around, they had the peace signs, you know, give love a chance, you know, make love, not war, all that nonsense, right? That was the left. That wasn't the right that did that. That was the left. But today, it's completely reversed. No. The guy who wants peace, P-E-A-C-E, not P-E-I-C-E, right? He wants peace, is Donald Trump. He said it during his campaign. He says it loudly today. But the left will have nothing of it. You hear all these idiots on the left talking about, I side with Ukraine. Listen, you have a guy come over here. He was told, I don't know whether you're aware of this, he was told in a meeting before he met in the White House that you go in there and here's how you act. You listen to President Trump. You give him the respect that he deserves. Wear a suit and tie. It's a sign of respect and a sign of sincerity. Wear a suit and tie. He was told this by his advisors. But this guy Zelensky, he would have nothing of it. You know, he sat down that morning with a Democratic coalition of congressmen, and they said to him, "Don't accept the deal. Don't accept
They've
the
been
deal."
coaching him. They were coaching him all along. What do they have in it? Now, there's a lot of things the Democrats are doing. You know, I think they want to not only upset this deal, they know that the American public wants everything that Trump is doing so far. And they're saying, oh, we're behind all of this. The only thing you're not doing is the electric cars. But it's going to take a long time to get this done. You see, they want to slow down the process. So then at the end, or coming to the end of the term, they'll say, he didn't do a damn thing that he said he was going to do. We tried to get it going, but he didn't do a damn thing. That's why you need a Democrat in charge. And then everything that we want goes away and it's back
Let
to
me
where
tell
it
you,
was.
that cuts no mustard with Trump right now. Trump knows he's on a mission. He's a man with a mission. He knows he only has one term, and that's why, by the way, he started off, flying, and it's not gonna slow down. And by the he's not terribly concerned with the optics anymore, like he was in the first term. It's like, you don't like what I'm doing, no big deal. The thing that I want to read this to you. This is interesting. I don't know whether you saw this. Tucker Carlson has issues with everything that happened on Friday. He put out this withering response to the disastrous Oval Office meeting between Ukrainian President Zelensky and President Trump. Listen to this. The conservative commentator, who is known for his skepticism towards America's support for Ukraine in the war, pointed out the fact that the notorious war hawk, Lindsey Graham, criticized Zelensky's conduct in the wake of the meeting. That came as a shocker to Tucker. Here's what he wrote. This is what Tucker Carlson wrote. He didn't. This wasn't on camera. This is a printed statement from Tucker Carlson, who is a pretty astute observer of the political scene. One of the most striking things about yesterday's Zelensky press conference was Lindsey Graham's reaction to it. The two are old friends, but Graham disavowed him within the hour. This was more than just transactional disloyalty. It was scapegoating. Lindsey Graham knows what's coming. Over the past 3 years, with the tacit support of Western patrons, the Ukrainian government has committed a remarkable number of serious crimes. The Ukrainians sold huge quantities of American weapons on the international black market at 20 cents on the dollar. These weapons are now in the hands of armed groups around the world, including Hamas, the Mexican drug cartels, and the forces now controlling Syria. God knows what the Ukrainians have done with the pathogens in American biolabs in their country. Even U.S. intel agencies aren't sure. The Ukrainians have also murdered a number of people in various countries in political assassinations and tried to murder others, including American journalists and a European head of state. This is all true, and it's all coming out at some point. Better to start blaming it on Zelensky right now. He referenced, by the way, there to Lindsey Graham. One of the most striking things about yesterday's Zelensky press conference was Lindsey Graham's reaction to it. The two are old friends, but Graham disavowed him within the hour. This was more than a transactional disloyalty. It was scapegoating. Lindsey Graham knows what's coming. And that's from Tucker Carlson. That's the statement he put out. And if you're wondering what Lindsey Graham said, I think it's interesting. We should play this. This is what he said.
Yeah, go ahead.
Within the hour.
I met with Zelensky this morning. I urged him to stay on message, be grateful, be thankful. We'll talk about details of security guarantees later. Keep it upbeat, keep it positive. It was absolute, utter disaster. The question for me is he redeemable in the eyes of Americans? Most Americans witnessing what they saw today would not want Zelensky to be their business partner, including me, and I've been to Ukraine 9 times since the war started. I met with him this morning. President Trump I talked to last night, he was upbeat about the deal. I've never been more proud of President Trump for showing the American people in the world you don't trifle with this man. He was very positive. He was very upbeat. He wanted to get a ceasefire. He wants to end the war. And Zelensky felt like he needed to bait Trump in the Oval Office. JD was awesome.
You know, the predictable response from casual observers on the left, and I have a number of them who I still consider friends, although I'm sure they can't stand my political posture. And that's all right, but they're not paying attention. I think eventually the smart ones will get it, and they'll understand what's really going on. I have a friend in England who posted on Facebook over the weekend. Didn't reference directly President Trump, but put up a Facebook big kind of a meme, like the definition of bully, and then it was the definition of bully, and I think the comment was enough said, or you know what I'm talking about, or something like that. And I was thinking, okay, we do know, and I first of all think that it's interesting when people of another country feel that they have an understanding of what's happening in this country better than we do, okay? But I also remind that same person, they come from a country, that waved their flag and supported wholeheartedly a guy named Neville Chamberlain. Neville Chamberlain went over and had a direct face-to-face with Adolf Hitler, and Hitler promised everything, and Chamberlain came back the victor, the peacemaker. Everything was going to be great. Everything was going to be wonderful until it wasn't. Okay?
Yeah.
And so, you then what happens in England is this chubby guy with a big belly who loved to smoke these big fat cigars, who was a bit brash and unconventional, let's say, he comes along and he rescues your bacon. He leads you out of the war. He leads you through the war and out of it. Mm-hmm. If you had a choice, if you looked on the surface at the two men side by side and saw Neville Chamberlain with his mustache and his dignity and his really perfect political posture next to this little fat guy who looked like he was kind of lost with a big stogie in his mouth, you would have said, I'll go with the guy with the diplomat. I'll go with him. He's the guy who knows what he's doing. Nuh-uh. It was the unconventional guy. Well, let me tell you, we have a guy over here in this country. You may not like him. You may not like his blonde hair. You may think he's brash. You may think he's a bully. You may think a lot of things. But when has it been wrong to be on the side of peace. When has it been wrong? This is a guy who has a goal, and that is to stop the killing. You get this cruddy little guy from Ukraine who comes in. He's been told, by the way, by people, wear a suit and tie this time around. Show that you're ready to take the next step. Wear a suit and tie and look like a diplomat. And he says, with the middle finger in the air, F you, right? And he comes over looking like the janitor. And he gets out of the car, and the first thing Trump says, "Oh, you dressed up," and he tried to make light of it. But right, you don't mess with this guy, Trump. He sees you. He knows what you're doing from the get-go. He walks in, and apparently the public only saw 11 minutes of the video, the end, right? And everybody said, "Oh, it was terrible." What you didn't see is the first part, which went about 40 minutes before. And in that 40 minutes before, all Zelensky did was talk about how he can't do this, and he will never accept that, and he doesn't think that peace is possible. And Trump just sat there and simmered and simmered, and it wasn't until the very end when he said, "You're in no position. You have no cards." But Trump tried to be a diplomat.
I actually saw the whole thing.
Did you,
he
Bill?
was very diplomatic, and he sat back. He took it in. You could tell he was growing more and more angry, and finally he had enough of Zelensky. Never once did Zelensky thank the United States for anything that we did. Never did it during the Biden campaign either. Even Biden said he is ungrateful. He is unthankful. All he's worried about is that war. And my theory is he's got to keep that war going. Now, other people want to keep that war going. The industrial military complex wants to keep it going. And I also have a longer theory about that. But either way, for Zelensky, he's not an elected official anymore.
Right.
He is there because of his War Powers Act, where, well, I'm sorry, martial law, I got to be in process. Now with a candidate in the wings out there that has 90% approval rate, if this deal goes through or there's peace found, Zelensky is done. The gravy train is over. He's toast. He's got to go back to dropping his pants and playing the piano again. He doesn't want to do that. The ivories don't tinkle too much.
You're not going to tell you, Bill. He apparently has a 4% approval rate in this country now.
Yeah,
Zelensky.
It was 10%. Now it's down to 4%.
Yeah, and you have a situation where Trump wants peace. And, we've been lied to, folks. Go ahead, Bill.
Even the left has said there's going to be a divisional line there. Russia's going to get some of the stuff that they want, or they wanted in the first place. And so what's the deal? And Trump is saying we're not going to go boots in the ground. Well, okay, we're not. But we could, because if we have interest there and we are there is the just the fact that, if we mess with them, Big Brother is vested in there. He ain't going to put up with that. So doing the deal, it's a win-win-win. Not doing the deal, puts us on the verge of war. And again,
you know what Russia said yesterday?
What?
They said, Mr. President, meaning President Trump, we invite you to look into our rare earth minerals. We have more than the Ukraine. We'd be happy to do business with you.
Because that protects them.
Yes. So Russia says, now, and of course the people on our left went nuts. Oh, he's working hand in hand with Putin.
No.
That's not, no. I'm going to play for you in a few minutes a long interview. It's in 2 parts, please.
What's the old line? If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. He went over, by the way, Zelensky did, with his tail between his legs, to England, and Keir Starmer, right, greeted him. Now, Starmer was in this country over the last week, and what's interesting was, at one point, and I haven't got the audio, but you probably have heard it, where Trump says to him, you think you can beat Russia by yourself? To Starmer. And Starmer kind of laughed. No, we're allies. We've been allies for years. We cherish. Because realistically, England knows that it cannot beat Russia by itself. Russia is a huge, powerful nation with, and by the way, Zelensky, I don't know whether you realize this, friends, or not, but Zelensky right now thinks that he can draw Europe into a fighting war in the Ukraine, and in doing so, draw us into it with them because of the NATO pact. But you know what Trump is thinking about doing right now? He's thinking about pulling out of NATO. Now,
here's what I think, though. If NATO gets into a war, this is going to be World War II all over again, where an attack is made on the United States, and we get drawn in that way. You know, even Japan, after they did the attack, we woke up a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
We're not a sleeping giant anymore. We're getting bigger. I'll tell you about that in a minute, but the simple fact is we're not sleeping anymore. We're sitting there with a watchful eye going, we're not involved in that fight.
Right.
But you hit us.
Right. Well,
we'll hit you hard.
Here's Starmer when he's greeting Zelensky. I think it was on Saturday. Listen.
You have full backing across the United Kingdom, and we stand with you, with Ukraine, for as long as it may take. And I hope you've heard some of that cheering in the street. That is the people of the United Kingdom coming out to demonstrate how much they support you, how much they support Ukraine, and our absolute determination to stand with you, unwavering determination, and to achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine. So important for Ukraine, so important for Europe, and so important for the United Kingdom. So I'm much looking forward to...
I'm sorry about the audio there because it's a little hollow, but what he said was that England stands whatever it takes side by side right next to the Ukraine for how long it takes. Now, if you're in England, if you're one of those people who are putting memes out like bully, I don't understand you, okay? Because apparently you want war. And apparently your leader just promised the Ukraine whatever it takes, we're with you. That says to me that you're going to find British troops on the soil in the Ukraine. I mean, they're over there now as advisors, but you're going to see them pulling the trigger, fighting against the Russians. Do you want that? Do you want a war with Russia? I ask my British friends, and I have nothing but the utmost respect. Actually, I found out recently from that I'm 5% British, so I have a part of me which has a stake in your country. You know, I know it's a little part, but it's a part. And I do believe that you're making a mistake by going down this path. You should be walking hand in hand with Donald Trump towards peace. Enough is that, Trump has figured out a way to make everybody happy. Everybody who's making money, everybody who's having financial success. They don't want to fight a war. They want to enjoy that success. And Trump is saying, look, I can make you guys rich, essentially. He said that to this idiot on Friday. I can make your country rich. It's mind-boggling, Bill. I mean, I listened to that stuff. I listened to what happened over the weekend. I was glued to the whole story all weekend. And the more I heard, and I keep listening to the loons on the left. For Pete's sakes, would you please get your head out of the deep and dark recesses of those places that you know so well, huh? I mean, get out of that thinking. You've got to start opening your minds up to the facts. You know, you have the Ukraine, which is, before the war, it was known around the world to be one of, if not the most corrupt countries in the world. It hasn't changed. Selling our equipment we gave them to fight a war at 20 cents on the dollar? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is nonsense.
Well, how do you think that Zelensky who didn't make that much money as an entertainer and not that much money as a president, is able to, well, his wife's got a Bugatti. They got a nice palatial mansion in Florida, and they have a few other homes, too. Where did the money come from?
Oh, I don't know, man. He saved. He saved,
really
boy.
did.
You know how hard he had to.
route.
He had to work really hard with that piano routine, man.
Yeah, he really did. He had a paper route, too, during this war.
Do you think?
He saved all that money. Yeah, he did. He saved all the money.
You know, he dresses like he just got off the route. He really does.
Well, you know, when you do everything with your pants down, I guess he threw the papers that way, too. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of his uniform, the military uniform, I have never once, you tell me, Democrats, you show me a picture of him with an unpressed T-shirt and military khaki pants that aren't ruffled and dirty. Because when you're fighting a battle, you get out there and you get dirt on there. You get sweat on there and grime and you stink and you look terrible. You're fighting in a war. You come in with all that press stuff, you're just prepping, baby.
Hey,
you're just a preppy. That's
Bill,
all you are.
I saw a picture of the airplane he flew in on. He's flying around the world on. They got this big, beautiful, I don't know, A380 or something. It rivals Air Force One.
Let me tell you something. Air Force One is an old plane. You even look at our fleet of planes that fly all over the country that we fly in. They're 10, well, they're not 10, they're 20, 30, 40 years old. That is the era of them. Even Air Force One we're flying, I think, 30-year-old planes. They might have been refurbished. Trump's plane is an older plane. There's not many new birds flying around this area.
Well,
and I think the maintenance has gone down during the Biden years because there sure is a lot of air failures lately. A lot of them.
Well, President Trump said, when's that new Air Force One going to be ready? And they had an update at Boeing. They said, we'll have it ready by 2029. And Trump said, put a hold on that order. We're going to look around the world and see whether they can get it faster. Apparently now they're looking at Airbus. They'll look at the A380, see what they can do. Trump is not tied at the hip. If Boeing is going to screw around with Trump, then they're screwing around with the wrong guy. He's not locked in. So
Boeing's got a lot of failures these days. I mean, a lot of their planes are, having all kinds of mechanical problems. So maybe we should look at other things,
Yeah.
And the Democrats are quick to say, hey, you know what? We've got to do business with other people in the world, too. All right, so Airbus is now part of it.
Yep. So anyway, I want to play, I got a two-part thing here. It's about altogether maybe 10 minutes. But it's worth listening to because you're going to find that we have a Secretary of State who is maybe one of the most articulate guys ever to be in that position. He's unafraid to talk to anybody, including George Stephanopoulos. He was on the This Week program with Stephanopoulos. Stephanopoulos, the lunatic left anti-Trump, guy, he thought he was going to put one over on Rubio, and it backfired. Here it goes. George Stephanopoulos and Marco Rubio yesterday.
Contact with President Zelensky since Friday?
Well, I haven't had any contact with him since Friday. We have plenty of contacts with him, though. Plenty. I mean, he met in the last 10 days. He's met with the Secretary of Commerce. He spoke to the president on the phone, met with the Secretary of Commerce, met with me, met with the Vice President, met with our special envoy, and then was invited and came over on, he wanted to come over on Friday to sign this commercial deal that didn't happen. So there's been plenty of contact with them. I've talked to the foreign minister several times, not since then. And we'll see moving forward. I think the last line in the president's Truth Social post is the one to focus in on, and that is, will we ready to re-engage when they're ready to make peace, which is clearly what the president's goal is here. He's trying to get Russia to the table to see if there's a way to bring about an end to this conflict. That's his goal. That's his only goal. That's his centralized focus. And, hopefully we'll get to a point where that's possible.
The British Prime Minister said this morning that the United Kingdom and France are working on a peace plan with Ukraine to present to the U.S. Do you know where things stand with that plan?
No, I mean, I've talked to both of the foreign ministers of France and the UK yesterday, and I explained to them sort of the events leading up to what you saw on Friday. Look, I think what's really important here is to understand the dynamic. The president is basically saying there's this horrible war. It's been going on for 3 years. It is a bloody stalemate, a meat grinder type war, and he wants it to end. How does it end? It's very simple. The only way it ends is if Vladimir Putin comes to a negotiating table, and right now President Trump is the only person on earth who has any chance whatsoever of bringing him to a table to see what it is he would be willing to end the war on. Now, maybe their claims or what they want, their demands will be unreasonable. We don't know, but we have to bring him to the table. You're not going to bring him to the table if you're calling him names, if you're being antagonistic. That's just the president's instincts from years and years and years of putting together deals as someone who's in business. And that's the only goal here.
Let me just stop you there for 1 second. Why is
a war with no end in sight?
Why is it okay to call President Zelensky Why is it okay to call President Zelensky a dictator, but not, as you say, call Vladimir Putin names?
Listen, we've spent 3 years calling Vladimir Putin names. That's not the point. Now, the point that we're at now is we're trying to get the man to a table, the Russians. And I've said from the very beginning, maybe they don't want a deal either. We don't know. But we haven't talked to them in 3 years. But maybe they do. The point is, do we want to make... I would ask everybody this. If there are no negotiations, what is the alternative? Another 4 years of war, another 3 years of war, in which the United States and Europe continues to pour billions of dollars into a war in Ukraine? Is that the alternative? I've asked every foreign minister I meet with, tell me your idea of how this turns out. Most don't have a plan. A few have said, well, let's give them another year of fighting. A year from now, a year later, after another year of death, another year of destruction, then maybe Putin will be ready to negotiate at that point. That doesn't sound like a good plan to me, and it certainly is not a plan the president's on board with.
It's not just about getting people to the table. It's about keeping agreements that are made. And that was one of the points that President Zelensky was making in the Oval Office on Friday, is that Vladimir Putin has not kept the agreements that were made in the past. Wasn't he right about that?
But what is it? Moving forward is the question, not the past. No one here is claiming Vladimir Putin is going to get the Nobel Peace Prize this year, or that he should be the man of the year of the Humanitarian Association. What we're arguing here is he has a very large country. They're in full war footing. They're cranking out weapons now at a war footing pace, and we need to figure out, is there a way to get them to stop the war? And the only way you're going to do that is to get Russians engaged in negotiations, something the Europeans haven't been able to do. The Biden administration wasn't able to do or didn't even try. That's the goal here. It's that simple. Can we try to sit with them and figure out whether there's anything, what are the Russians' demands? Under what conditions would the Russians be willing to stop this war? And as I said, we don't know what those are because we haven't talked to them in 3 years. That's the singular goal here, is to try to bring about an end to this conflict, and it begins by getting them to the table. Ultimately, like any truce, like any peace agreement anywhere in the world, those things will have to be enforced, they'll have to be enduring, there'll have to be safeguards put in place. Everybody understands that, but it begins with the first step, and that is engaging them to see if it's even possible. Because if it's not possible, then what we're looking at is a protracted stalemate with thousands of people dying, billions of dollars pouring in, and more death and destruction. And that's not something the president wants to be a part of. He's made it very clear.
Aren't those talks feasible only if the United States is willing to also provide security guarantees to Ukraine? That was the point that President Zelensky was also making in the Oval Office.
Well, the security guarantees, which I actually like to call deterrence of is all contingent upon there being a peace. Everybody's saying security guarantees to secure the peace. You first have to have a peace. We don't even know if the peace is possible. And this was understood by the Ukrainians. It was explained to them repeatedly. And that is, here's our strategy. We're trying to get Putin to a negotiating table. Let's not everyone knows the history here, the back and forth. We understand that. We all understand that. But the question now is, can we get them to a table to negotiate? That's our goal. Don't do anything to disrupt that. And that's what Zelensky did, unfortunately, is he found every opportunity to try to Ukraine-splain on every issue. Then he confronts the vice president. When the vice president says the goal here is diplomacy, he immediately jumps in and challenges the vice president. Well, what kind of diplomacy? Well, so we all understand, okay, that Putin is not going to be an easy negotiator in this regard. We all get that. But we have to start the process to see if something is even possible. And I honestly am puzzled. I just don't understand. The Biden administration berated Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis, put all kinds of conditions and pressure on them to try to get a ceasefire. In this particular case, we've been nice by comparison. And all we're trying to do here is figure out whether a peace is possible. All these other things that people keep bringing up, that'll have to be a part of a negotiation. Right now, there is no negotiation. Shouldn't we at least try to see if there is a way to end this war in a way that's acceptable to both sides and is enduring and sustainable? How is that a bad thing? I really am puzzled why anyone thinks that trying to be a peacemaker is a bad thing. It's only a bad thing when it's Donald Trump trying to do it. When it's President Trump, it's absurd to me.
Part two coming up in just a matter of seconds, but he's so articulate, this guy, and so is J.D. Vance. By the way, did you hear? J.D. Vance decides, look, I need to take my family away for a little mini vacation. He goes up to Vermont.
Yeah, kind of put them in because they were threatened.
Yeah.
The lives of the family were threatened. And you know what? The audio you just played, you got Rubio in charge of the entire thing. Now, if you believe the left media over the weekend, a lot of your lefty friends will be going, boy, did he tear Rubio a new one there, because they have a 2-minute clip that's edited down.
Yeah.
To make Rubio sound caught off guard. And that's not the case at all. Again, the news taking the facts and editing and changing the narrative and the outcome. And not only is that deceitful and a lie, but, well, they're internet. There's no license. But they should lose their privilege at all to be in business. You go on the internet, the feds come in and shut you down and take your equipment away because you've already proven you can't tell the truth. You can't report the news. You're propaganda. Propaganda needs to be shut down.
Now, the left, like I said earlier, they used to be the party of peace, love, make love, not war. Now they're incensed with the fact that Donald Trump he wants peace. It's amazing.
I think they're beholden to the globalist, is what I think. And, I have a full chain thought of what's going on, and it's not a pretty thought. But either way.
Another group of lunatic left, they went over to the Tesla dealership in New York City, and it was a large, rowdy crowd that had to be broken up by the New York City special unit. I guess they were for demonstrations and stuff like that. I saw a broken glass. That means nothing, of course, to the left. Breaking glass on somebody else's property, no big deal. They blocked the doors. They rabble-roused, and they waved the Ukrainian flag, and that's what they do,
Can I ask you a question?
What's that?
If in protest, I went out in my front lawn and took a Ukrainian flag, called a news conference, and I lit it on fire, would I end up in
You'd be
jail?
arrested. It's hate crime, absolutely hate crime. You would be taken away in cuffs. Almost guaranteed.
Now, if somebody stood next to me and did that with the American flag,
they'd be cheered by the left. Now,
where's the
tell me how
justice?
that makes sense. I don't know. And by the way, to my friends who post on Facebook the Ukrainian flag, we're in solidarity, we're with you, all that.
You're in stupidity with them.
Wake the hell up. For Pete's sakes, put aside whether you've been a Democrat your whole life, put that aside. We're not talking party politics. We're talking the existence of mankind. You may say, well, you're being awfully dramatic, Jim. Well, let me tell you where this can go. If we end up having NATO involved in the Ukraine, and they drag us into that war, and they can do it, like Bill said, they can do it by a fake attack on our country. All of a sudden we're in that war. We're talking about your family, your children, your friends, possibly dying as a result of this nonsense.
Russia did some military exercises. What did we do? Well, we actually, you remember the Minuteman. Of course,
Sure.
The Minuteman is outdated. There was Minuteman 1, there's Minuteman 2.
Sure.
There's Minuteman 3 now. And supposedly, it's big, it's bad, it's fast, and, it packs a bang. We did a test launch here of that, and it was successful. And they're the only reason I say that. It's a show of might, because when you say we are on the cusp of nuclear war, we are. Russia even though they would probably like to see they would like to see the peace. They don't want to go to war because they know they're going to be wiped out too. We will both be decimated.
Trust me, Bill, there's no limited nuclear war. Every scenario they've done, they do mock war games. They do mock war games where they put all the different scenarios. Remember that movie War Game? Was it War Games? Where they had a big computer, and every time they would feed, I think Matthew Broderick was in it. They would feed the different programs into the computer, and every single version of the mock games they fed the computer came back thermonuclear war. And when when you hear people say, fatheads like Sean Penn, that thinking that it's okay if we have a little nuclear war, there's no such thing. They all snowball into a worldwide nuclear conflagration, and that's what happens.
There's only one group of people, and whether you want to call them the oligarchs of the world, or the deep state, or the globalists that have their private meetings. They're the ones that think they're going to win because they'll wipe out the population and life will go on and it will be rebuilt, maybe with robots. Who knows how they're going to do it? The only thing they're going to want to do is gather up all the wealth of the world, which makes me wonder if, there's worried about where is all the gold. Well, wouldn't that be interesting if its gold has been moved from our vaults to theirs, Well, but
Bill, let me ask you, I think a lot of the stories that are out there right now are all tied together. Okay?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, we have this clown walking out on Trump's peace meeting, actually being thrown out for his attitude, but having been instructed by the left not to accept the metals deal, the rare earth deal, you have a situation where I think that the Epstein files, if they're released, and there's a lot of pressure to get them released, a lot of the globalists, a lot of the deep staters, the same people who were involved with all this, the evil SOBs they're sick, folks. They're sick. They have no problem molesting children, young people, and in the same breath, they have no problem destroying a large segment of the population for their goals, to their ends, okay? They have no problem with this. These are the people who don't want to be embarrassed. My question is, are they willing to go to war? Are they willing, as opposed to being exposed, which they're on the verge of right now, and which the Trump administration, they're fighting with their own FBI. We have Kash Patel, who's the director of the FBI, on the top of the pile. He's the guy at the FBI. And he has subordinates who are flipping him the bird in New York saying, you're not getting this stuff. You're not getting this stuff. They're protecting a large segment of the deep state. The one that you may not believe in. You may be going, there's no such thing as a deep state. And then what time is the game on today? Get your head out of that dark place and start thinking like a serious person, because your life may be on the line, okay? It's as simple as that. By the way, Bill, I'm older, Mine's mostly behind me, but there's a lot of young people who I care about and love. Their life is all ahead of them. And maybe they don't even believe, they may not believe what I'm talking about. That's okay. They may be young and foolish. I was young and foolish too. But if you're my age and believe this, you got a problem. I'm sorry, Bill. You were saying?
No, I'm just agreeing to everything there. I mean, I have a thought, but we'll go into it afterwards. There's so much more to talk about.
Marco continued with George Stephanopoulos. He wraps it up. Listen.
Well, even some of your Republican allies are puzzled by the steps that President Trump has taken to placate Vladimir Putin. I want to bring up a post that Lisa Murkowski.
Well, which ones? Which steps has the president taken to placate?
Let me show you. What
are we arming the Russians? Are we providing economic assistance to the Russians? Have we given the Russians $180 million?
Please let me ask you a question. This is Lisa Murkowski, and here's what she says. This week started with administration officials refusing to acknowledge that Russia started the war in Ukraine. It ends with a tense intense and shocking conversation in the Oval Office and whispers from the White House that they may try to end all U.S. support for Ukraine. I know foreign policy is not for the faint of heart, but right now I am sick to my stomach as the administration appears to be walking away from our allies and embracing Putin, a threat to democracy and U.S. values around the world. Those are not my words. That's Senator Lisa Murkowski. What's your response?
Well, yeah, we're a free country. People have a right to these opinions. I would just say to you, what have we done to placate the Russians? The only thing we've done is say, are you guys willing to talk about peace? I say the same point. We're not giving them. We haven't given them.
You voted with North Korea and Russia and you voted with North Korea and Russia and Belarus in the United Nations and against our Western allies.
No, well, let me tell you. All right. So you know what do you know what the United Nations resolution was? I'll tell you if you want to hear what it was. It basically said this has been a horrible war. It's time for it to end. The job of the UN is to bring about peace in the world. I thought that's what the UN was created to do, to stop wars and to prevent them. And that's what the resolution did. Was it antagonistic towards the Russians? No. Back to the point. But it also didn't praise the Russians. All it said is this is a bad war. It needs to end. And by the way, at the Security Council, which has not been widely reported, the first resolution on Ukraine that has passed the Security Council in 3 years passed this week because of the leadership of President Trump. And it's a resolution that says bad war needs to end. Let's bring the two sides together. That's what the resolution is. Again, what is the United Nations for? Isn't it not a forum to promote peace in the world? And shouldn't our president, shouldn't we all be happy that we have a president who's trying to stop wars and prevent them instead of start them? And I just don't get it. I really don't, other than the fact that it's Donald J. Trump. If this was a Democrat that was doing this, everyone would be saying, well, he's on his way to the Nobel Peace Prize. This is absurd. We are trying to end a war. You cannot end a war unless both sides come to the table, starting with the Russians. And that is the point the president has made. And we have to do whatever we can to try to bring them to the table to see if it's even possible. I'm not promising you it's possible. I'm not telling you it's 90% likely. I'm saying it's 0% likely if we don't get them to a negotiating table. And the sooner everyone grows up around here and figures out that this is a bad war that's heading in a bad direction with death and destruction and all kinds of dangers surrounding it that could spiral into a broader conflict, the sooner people grow up and realize that, I think the more progress we're going to be able to make. But the president's crystal clear. He campaigned on it, and he's going to govern on it. And that is, he is going to be a president that tries to achieve peace, and he has been very clear this is a war that would have never happened had Donald Trump been in the White House, and it needs to end, and we're going to do everything we can to end it in an enduring and sustainable and fair way.
You said in your confirmation hearings that Russia will have to make concessions to get a peace deal. What concessions do you expect them to make?
Well, why would I say that on a news broadcast? That's what negotiations are about. That's the problem here. Again, this is not a messaging exercise, okay? This is, can they get to a table? And then there's hard work to be done. You're absolutely right. I'm not telling you this is an easy peace deal. The Russians will give you a 30-minute lecture on the history of Ukraine and this, that, and the other. The Ukrainians have their own point of view. There's no doubt about it. But what peace deal in the history of the world has ever been easy? That's the hard work of diplomacy. That's exactly what the vice president was alluding to. That's what peace deals involve. You've covered this. You've been around for a long time. These conflicts are not easy to solve. But you can't solve them at all if you don't even have a process to try to solve it, if you don't have the parties at the table. And right now, that's been our goal. It's been explained crystal clear to the Ukrainians and the Europeans and everyone else who wants to know for weeks now. And the only thing they were told is, do not do things to derail it. And sadly, President Zelensky, couldn't contain himself in that regard. I hope this could all be reset. I hope he comes to the realization that we're actually trying to help his country here before it suffers thousands of more casualties. 3 million people have already left Ukraine. Are they ever going to be able to come back? He's got Ukrainians being held prisoner, including children on the Russian side. Why is any of this good for anybody? And the argument that we're going to just keep it going forever, that's absurd. So it's time to bring the Russians to the table, if it's even possible, and see if there's a way forward that ends this conflict and makes sure it never happens again. That's our goal. That remains our goal. That's the president's goal.
I love what he says when when Stephanopoulos says, well, what kind of concessions would the Russians have to make? And he says, well, why would I tell you now here on television, essentially? That's what negotiations are all about. You don't negotiate on television. Stephanopoulos, he was justifiably so put in his place by a very articulate Marco Rubio. Trump has got some really smart young people working on his team. You got Marco Rubio, you got J.D. Vance, you got Pam Bondi, you got Kash Patel, who, by the way, you'll hear more about him as the days and weeks progress. He's still new to the job. He's still getting his stuff out of his boxes in his office.
Sadly, the American public is not going to know that we've got these people and what they have to say, because they know we got the people, but they don't know what they have to say, because the lefty news, the mainstream news, not the news, they take interviews like that and they cut it down without, him giving his answer and making it sound like he's sitting there with a question going, a big pause.
Well, that's why that's why we found out over the weekend that as of 2024, since our show's inception, what was it, 3 years ago? A little over 3 years ago, we've had about 427 million downloads. Now, people may say that's ridiculous, but it's around the world, folks. Different streaming sites around the world, and it when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. And that came from Variety magazine.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So there are, and we're not, by the way, the biggest dog on the street. Okay, there are a lot of guys who have many, many more listeners than we do, and that's what they're worried about. We are part now of the new media. This is that's why, Bill, we played the whole thing here.
Somebody can sit there and read. They can take the thing and download the transcript and get it in milliseconds.
Yep.
It's download. It's not time spent listening a lot. They get it, or they go right to the part that they want, and that's just the way it works. They don't have to download the show. They can listen a little bit. It might count as a download, but it could be a 30-second topic that we talked about. We don't get credit for that, because you have to be. I think you got to do a couple of minutes of the show.
Yeah.
And we have so much content. Anyway, wasting time.
Well, we truly have. We live in a dangerous situation right now. I don't know where this is going. I can tell you that there's a lot of talk out there now that Zelensky is not going to be the guy who can negotiate for Ukraine, that they're going to have to remove him, replace him with somebody. There's talk, by the way, that the parliament in the Ukraine is looking to impeach Zelensky now. Now,
that's true.
He's working under martial law, which I don't know whether you can impeach somebody who's essentially taken power as a dictator, but
I think you can remove him.
Well, they should be able to, yeah, I would think so. They got to get somebody who can come in and talk, and Zelensky cannot.
Well, there's only a couple of things I think that they could do. The number one, they remove him, and then they can have a fair election again. He is not going to allow an election to happen, so that means this war has got to continue for him. That's the only way he's going to be able to get away with what he's got. He's gotten to a point to where he's going, I got nowhere to, go but straight down. I got to hold on to this. So he's grasping at every straw that he can. He's going to have to be in. You almost need to have someone come in and intervene and overthrow that government, or they got to do it from within and do a fair election. One way to do it would be to get this deal going, because then there would be a ceasefire. But then there would be an election, and he would be stepping down, and there may be, if there's some dirt, something that he's hiding, there is.
Yeah.
Then he won't be a free man for a very long time. He's a prisoner of his own prison right now.
I should point out to our friends overseas who don't really understand, they may think that when you hear them say that Trump is, apparently they say that Trump won't even go to the next step until Zelensky makes a public apology. And a lot of the press is spinning that is to placate Trump's ego. And see, this is the disingenuous mainstream media. It's not anything to do in Trump's mind with his ego. He is a representative of our country. This guy was told to wear a suit in the Oval Office out of a sign of respect. We've given you $350 billion. Maybe show a little respect and come into this country and act like a gentleman and a diplomat. And this guy came into the Oval Office looking like the janitor. Some janitors actually look better. He flipped his finger at the president And even when he talked to Vice President Vance, as opposed to talking to him as Vice President Vance, the way you're supposed to do it as a diplomat, he throws out the familiar, well, JD, like they're buddies, like they're pals, like they're meeting at the corner bar, which was not the case. The thing is, this Trump wants an apology for the American people, for the government, for the position. He wants this guy Zelensky to apologize to us as a nation, not to him personally. The guy doesn't need it personally. He needs to see that this guy respects our country. You heard Trump say, Bill, I'm not doing this for Russia. I'm not on Russia's side. I'm not on the Ukraine side. I'm on the side of America. That's what Trump said in this angry meeting on Friday. I'm on America's side. And that's what you got to believe. This guy, he's not doing this because he wants the money. He's not doing it because he wants the fame. He's got all the fame in the world. Even if he hadn't run as president, he would probably be the most well-known American on the planet. Yet he's doing it because he loves our country. And that's why he wants an apology from Zelensky. I don't think Zelensky has it in him. He had the opportunity on Bret Baier's show on Fox at 6 o'clock on Friday night when he was a guest. He had the opportunity to apologize to President Trump and to the American people, and he definitively and intentionally walked away from that opportunity. He didn't do it. He did not apologize. So you can't.
And I don't think he will.
Yeah, well, that means you got to get somebody else in there because Trump's not going to talk. And in the meantime, I also read, Bill, that on the day that he turned his back on this peace deal, the ceasefire, they lost 200-plus soldiers on the battlefield in that one day on Friday, Ukrainians. 200 guys died. They may have had a ceasefire done that day if he had said, I'm all for a ceasefire. Russia and Ukraine might have said, okay, you want a ceasefire? We'll do a ceasefire effective immediately, and then let's sit down and talk. And those guys might be alive today. So go ahead, Bill. You had I'm on a roll.
No.
today.
You're on a roll. You're doing good, but he doesn't want peace. That's obvious, and the way that he just wants to tell his same story over and over again. I don't think he has it in him, the ability to say thank you, America.
No, I think you're right.
And he can't say thank you, President Trump. He can't do, any of that, and that's where the problem is.
It was interesting. Do you hear in this angry exchange on Friday, J.D. Vance said, have you said thank you once? He says, I've said thank you many times. He said today, in this meeting. He says you went out and you campaigned for the opposition in October in Pennsylvania. He campaigned for Kamala, but he didn't thank the guy who's trying to save his bacon, his country.
No, and he's not going to. He doesn't care. So
he doesn't. Anyway, Bill, it's going to be an interesting day. It's Monday. It's going to be an interesting week.
It's only just begun because it's going to be interesting to see if he does come back. Supposedly he's coming back. They say, look, the only way to get something done is through the American deal. I do think that, Britain, France, they all want to somehow weasel themselves into this. And I wouldn't be surprised if they come back and say, it's actually the only way. It's a great idea. But we need to be a part of this deal, too. And everyone wants, hey, man, it's like the mob out there, hey, we want a piece of your action, It's like there's no action.
When I heard Keir Starmer on Friday or Saturday welcome Zelensky and say, essentially, he threw Trump under the bus, I thought, with friends like these, you don't need enemies. Of course, he said, he did say, and I don't have the audio, he did say, we are with you, we'll be with you till the end. Of course, we need the support of the United States.
Right.
Starmer said that, and I thought, well, you're not going to get it by by essentially attacking Trump. It ain't going to happen. You know, Scott Jennings on CNN, the guy who I think has an office next to the furnace in the basement because he's a conservative, he talked about the Zelensky meeting on Friday. Listen.
I think it was premeditated.
I don't know.
I think Zelensky misplayed it in the room, and you can and we could disagree about J.D. Vance's position on it or agree on it, but either way, Zelensky certainly had been briefed on what the right way to handle this was, and all he had to do was walk in there and say, "Thank you. I'm really grateful to be here. We want to be partners with the United States. We're grateful for your leadership. Where's the papers, and what are we having for lunch?" That's all he had to do. And look, the posturing doesn't have to occur now. If he is serious about wanting peace and ending this war, you don't have to keep posturing as a tough guy. Everybody knows you're tough, all right? The Ukrainians are tough. They're brave. They're fighting a much larger country. Everybody knows. The question for Zelensky is, can you take off the military uniform and put on the uniform of diplomacy? He failed the test today.
Boy, he sure did. That's Scott Jennings, the lone conservative over there at CNN. I think they should hire him and bring him over to a network that'll appreciate him. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he's right about Zelensky, and we mentioned that earlier. You know, the guy, it's all show. He's not a military leader. He's never gotten himself dirty. It's photo ops, because that's what he knows.
Yep.
You know, he was an onstage comedian. Photo ops. Yeah, that's all he's doing.
I'll tell you, Bill, is what he did on Friday really wasn't funny. I want to point out while we have time that we are the purveyors of a great cup of coffee. Besides being your local conservative pundits over here, we make a coffee called Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's a delicious blend of the finest coffee beans available and hand-selected and made just to perfection for you. You can buy it at rightsideshop.com, rightsideshop.com. You'll love that cup of coffee every morning when it's Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. And we are the only coffee company in the world that have Juan Jose and the Border Crossers sing the jingle.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
So wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee. Bill, you pointed something out this morning before we started the show I find more than a coincidence about fires. And
you're talking about the fires?
Yeah.
But they're not just in Myrtle Beach, 1,200 acres in Myrtle Beach. But you got Jersey, you got South Carolina. So you don't just have North Carolina, you got South Carolina. And then you've got, I think, Georgia. They got in there and they say, there's more winds coming. Well, it's been pretty cold. It's wet. Maybe the showers will diminish the fires. But, all right, if one fire broke out, and there's a lot of forest there.
Right.
One fire broke out. Okay, somebody threw a cigarette out the window and it caught some dry area and it went up. But you got 1,200 acres. It just went up quick. And now you got fires all over the place. Does this not sound like California all over again? Does this not sound like somebody's out there setting fires? Maybe they're doing with it drones. Maybe that's what they're doing, flying around drones. Hey, go ignite it there. Okay, fly off, start another one. Or there's people running around. It stinks.
Something stinks. Yeah, I agree 100%. We have fires in California, and like a month and a half later, we have fires on the East Coast. And, with a fire, you never know where it's going to go. It can be a little fire, or it can go out of control. So it just seems like more than a coincidence.
Well, yeah, and it takes everything off of California, because now all of a sudden, now Carolinas and down there, they just came off of they haven't even recovered yet from all the hurricane damage, torrential floods and everything. So their capacity to fight fires is probably put down. But then they're going to go in there and say, see, they couldn't, is this just a distraction? Again, it's an expensive distraction. But, if I were to find out that somebody was nefariously doing this for political purposes, that trial would be public, quick, and they would be put to death, because, that's an attack on American soil.
Yeah.
It's nothing more than, nothing less, nothing more. It's an attack, and it needs to be dealt with appropriately. I'm a little bit of a radical and things like that.
I kind of think everything's connected, Bill. I kind of think everything's connected. We don't realize it, but there's an element out there trying to screw us big time. And
Well, you know what? If they don't care what they do to our soil, they don't care what they do to the buildings, they don't care about the lives they disrupt, and we're worried about this Ukraine peace, and otherwise we're at the cusp of nuclear war. Well, maybe there's a faction of the world that wants to sit there and have the war. Maybe that's their population control. Maybe there's an agenda. Maybe they're so stupid they believe they can get war going and control it. Once that beast is out of its cage, I don't think you can control it or throttle it or stop it. It's a done deal.
Well, think of it.
We're cooked.
The thing that
Literally.
the Ukraine has is they have a big dog like us trying desperately to put that war back in the bottle, okay?
Yeah.
But if we're all in the war. If everybody's in the war, there's no more big dog.
Well, okay.
Who's going to come
There's
to
a
our
lot.
aid? Go ahead, Bill.
Well, there's a lot. We're the kingpin.
Right.
We're the kingpin of peace throughout the world. And democracy, the chance of democracy. But there have been people since day one that we, came into existence, have not wanted this, call it the globalists, the money people of the world, whatever it is, they never wanted us to be. So how do you take us down? Well, you take us down by dividing the people, doing a pretty good job of that. Divide the races. Yeah, you know what? Let's divide the genders. That'd be a good idea, too. Let's get them all fighting. And, let's get
Screw
them
up the
involved.
children. Screw up the children big time, too. Have them do surgeries at 7 and 6.
I can think of a half dozen things that are going on that can take down a nation. And at some point in time, they do it. The only thing that, and I hate to go around to the gold thing, because, cryptocurrency, we got a lot of assets and value. But I'll tell you what, if that 5.8 metric tons of gold ain't around, then all of a sudden, where is it? Is it sitting in somebody's vault somewhere? It's somewhere. We know that. Hopefully, it's all just a rumor that it's not there, and they've just kept it really guarded. But it does raise speculation. They do need to show it, because if it's not there, the bets are off. Forget about it.
By the way, we should point out that in the Ukraine over the weekend, not the Ukraine, I'm sorry, in England over the weekend, when Zelensky was meeting with Keir Starmer, the British said they're going to give him $2.26 billion, about 2.26 billion euros, which is about $2.84 billion U.S., which is a lot of money. But I would remind the Ukraine that we gave you $350 billion already, and we're still counting over here. So you can get your 2.26 billion euros and may think you walked away with something. But if we turn our back on you, you're walking away from a hell of a lot more. A hell of a lot more.
The left is trying to trivialize that 350 billion. Well, it might have been 125. I don't care if we gave him a frickin' dollar. We gave him something. And to me, it's a loan. Biden did not have the authority to give it away willy-nilly. Everybody else is getting paid back. Why are we not?
The left is saying it was more like 150 billion. But let me tell you something, folks, okay? 150 billion is a lot of money. More money than most countries probably produce in a year. Okay, but Trump, he's a businessman, and he knows the real figures. I've done in my life, I've had my own businesses, and I've done, sheets, and I've projections and stuff like that, and I've tried to make figures look better than they were, and sometimes trying to make figures look, look smaller than they really were.
Don't
right?
tell on yourself.
Okay. They can be manipulated, but Trump knows the real figures. I believe that if Trump says it's $350 billion, he knows that that's the real figure. He's taking into consideration all of the stuff we're giving you, the airplanes and the tanks and the ammunitions, not just the cash that we put in a check and dumped into your account. Trump, go ahead.
There's a cost to doing that, too. Oh, we're going to give you some weapons. We've got to get them ready. We got to get them there.
Yeah.
That's a cost, too.
Absolutely,
when you add it
Bill.
all up, you've got to sit there. Sometimes at work they do an audit. You ever been audited? They count the frickin' paper clips you got in your. How many paper clips you got in there? There's a formula for everything because they're jacking up the value to exactly everything. They're not rounding out numbers here. Democrats want to round it down. Well, we only.
Bill, the left also tries to make it them versus us, the Russians versus the Ukrainians. Trump has said he's on the side of peace. He's on the side of peace. He wants the dying to stop. He said it himself. He wants no more death. He doesn't want to see any more Russians die. He doesn't want to see any more Ukrainians die.
So he's on the side of world population. He is on the side of people.
He's on the side
Not
of
nations.
people. Right.
Not nations and governments. He's on the side of the people.
Yes.
Get that through your head. Unless you're not a person. If
We
you're
have
not
a lot
people,
of-
then I get,
We have a lot of listeners, believe it or not, on this show.
in the Ukraine.
In the Ukraine. Yes.
And Russia.
And understand something to my Ukrainian listeners out there, that this show has the greatest deal of love and respect for you. We know you're going through a terrible time right now. It is hell. We want you to live and prosper. We want your families to grow and be healthy. We want you to have all of the good things that we have here in this country. And so does our president. And by the way, to our Russian listeners, we have Russian listeners. We tell you that we want you to live. This war crap has got to stop. And forget the posturing by the big guys, the big dogs. That Zelensky came over, this little guy comes over, and he tries to posture like he's a tough guy. Don't be a tough guy. Be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Democrats. Oh, go ahead.
Bill, it irritates me because the only way this is going to end if somebody on both sides, the Russian side and the Ukrainian side, have the common sense, the decency to realize that there's no end to this unless somebody sits down and has some reason. Somebody sits down, and I think that Trump realizes he can be the neutral negotiator. He can get the two sides who hate each other at the table, and he can massage them, calm them down, and work them both into a situation where they realize that there will be no victor, no real victor. They're both going to be losers if they continue doing this.
Yeah. Well, we've been divided so much, though, as people, as parties. I mean, we had the thing Friday where it was, don't do business Friday. It was a lefty movement. I think that one kind of, sucked real big time. I don't think.
Yeah, it went over like a pregnant pole vaulter, Bill.
But, you take a place like Devaney's, legendary pizza and original hot hoagies.
Yeah, I saw that.
In Minnesota, man, Minnesota,
the land of...
Yeah, the pizza chain. It kicked out a group of Republicans and Trump supporters, and the owners are going, we're sorry about that. Well, you know what? You've been around local since 1975. It's 2025. You know what? Kiss 50 years of business goodbye. Because... I don't think, if I were there locally, I would go, there's a reason for that blue awning. Change the red name to blue because, I wouldn't feel welcome there.
They should put a new sign up, Devani's, make pizza great again. They should embrace the MAGA movement. They should do something. They're going to go out of,
but they won't.
They're going to go out of business if they don't, But, you see the picture, by the way,
they're catering.
The picture of what's her name, Kamala, dressed up, not dressed up, very dressed down with the hair kind of tied back, and she's opening a bag of Doritos, and I guess it was put up on the internet by her husband, saying that they had no intention of going to the Oscars. There had been a rumor that she was going to the Academy Awards. By the way, I don't think anybody watched it, Bill. I don't know, but I'll be willing to bet you that this will be the lowest rated Academy Awards in the history of the ratings.
Kamala's not a looker, and, her clothes are frumpy, even when she wore a designer suit. But actually, her hair there in a messy bun and sitting there in the kitchen, kind of natural, made her look like common folk. She's not common. but made her look like common folk. But I got to wonder what it is with these Democrats and Doritos.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like Doritos myself.
I like Doritos too, I mean,
Hey, everything I like, Bill, is fat or against the law or something,
yeah, well, there you go. You do a podcast, you sit around and talk and eat Doritos, the Dorito Chronicles.
I love
Not
Doritos.
good for you, but yeah.
No, they go right to my waistline. All that stuff. There's not even a part. They don't even waste any time. It's like eating instant fat.
Yeah. The body just goes.
Yeah.
It gets big.
When you go in for your yearly checkup with your doctor, and the first thing he says to you is, "Yeesh."
Doritos?
Yeah.
Me too.
Oh,
yeah, that did.
Hey, I think, Bill, we have just about done it. We've started the week, I think, with on a fast note. There's a lot of things. We said this a few minutes ago. Look out for what's happening in the Ukraine. Will Zelensky fly back, or will there be somebody in his place that flies back and negotiates
That'll
a
be
peace?
the telltale.
Yeah. Also,
but if he doesn't come back and somebody else does it, is he out of power, or is it just a placekeeper that comes in and does it, and then they can turn around and renege on it if they want to?
Well, that's a good question, Bill. Time will tell. Also, we got the situation with the Southern District of New York, the FBI there, and the people who are holding back all those documents on the Epstein situation. Pam Bondi says they have an order to give it all back. I had been told that there had been marshals that were sent up, and they had actually gone to the office and they were collecting all the information. I don't know whether that's true or not. A lot of rumors floating around. I didn't see anything more on that over the weekend. If it happened, it was quiet.
Anything we get and we have to give back will be destroyed.
Yeah. Do you know who's in charge, by the way, of one of the all these major cases out of New York? The daughter of James Comey.
Oh, it figures.
Maureen Comey. Yep. So.
Well, yeah, they're going to do some, clean up there. They want to get themselves out of trouble. Somebody, we ought to do what the Democrats do. Case in point, congressional reporter for Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
Gets some information on where ICE is planned to do a raid in D.C. and he leaks it and tells them where to avoid and hide. So they get information and they just throw it out there illegally. We ought to go get the stuff and just put it out there, and that's it.
Well, the other thing is this, by the way, that person should go to jail who leaked that information.
Oh, absolutely.
And I would suggest if Pam Bondi or anybody in her office listens to this program, those people who are holding back that information you demanded, they shouldn't be fired. They should be indicted and arrested. They should go to jail.
Don't give them a chance to destroy the information. GR, get and release.
Yeah.
So GNR, get and release, get the information, release it. If we've got nothing to fear about what's there, get it and get it out there and let the chips fall where they may.
Enough said. Couldn't have said it any better. Hey, listen, I'm done, my friend. I'm going to go have a cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee and put my feet up for a few minutes. It's been that kind of program.
Yeah, it's been that kind of program. Just keep in mind that California Democrat introduced a bill to make it illegal to defend yourself. Self-defense is soon to be illegal.
Oh, my God.
In California. Isn't that a brilliant idea?
California, what the hell are you doing to yourself? Is this a form of legislative suicide you're performing out there, voting these idiots into office? For God's sakes, and by the way, if that movement to have a new California that's conservative, get off your hiney and do it.
There's a reason to do it, because if you're not safe in your own home, let aside outside, and you can't defend yourself, I mean, you may as well just every time you see somebody that looks a little nefarious, pull out your wallet, empty your pocket, say, "Here you go. You can have it."
Yeah.
Because they're going to take it. One way or the other.
Well, I wonder what they would think of the castle law. You know, the castle law is your home is your property. You have a right to defend your property. If somebody breaks into your house and you shoot them, you are okay. Like it's okay in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has the castle law.
Yeah,
there are a lot
they
of
have
states.
the weasel law in California. The weasel law.
Really, you're supposed to hand the guy who's in your house your gun.
Yeah, you know, you just take it up the wazoo. Norway has turned away American ships because of the Zelensky.
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
They're not going to fuel our ships. Well, you know what? Okay,
but
duly noted.
The follow-up to that story was that was a private company that did that had the contract. They said, well, I think it's something for bunker or whatever. They're the company that was supplying it, and as soon as the government of Norway heard that, they said, no. We are friends with the United States. They're allies, long-term allies, and you are going to give them the gas. So they are giving them the gas. They overrode that private company. But there's an attitude in places like Norway where people
Kinda
think
like
it's
Canada.
And by the way, what does Norway have a northern border to? I think isn't there a northern border on Russia? So, I mean, or if not, it's pretty darn close. So,
well, you know what? Maybe Russia ought to invade Norway.
Well, hey, listen,
don't come to us for help. You know,
I think, in all honesty, I think that you push Donald Trump, he will step out of Norway in a heartbeat, and then you guys will be on your own and see how that works out for you.
Okay. Well, yeah, they you know, sometimes when you feel pretty strong, don't push around your muscle. Not a good idea to do.
Yeah, and with that, I'm done, Bill. I'm finished. I'm going for my coffee.
Yeah, you go for the coffee. I'm grabbing my coffee. I'm cooked too. I'm just going to do one thing: take a bite out of my apple right after I say "Hasta la vista, baby." We're out of here.
This is CRN America.